When you see the whole world shaking and you feel your heart is breaking, take my hand, no hesitating. Oh, when you're just so tired of trying, all alone you feel like hiding. Together we'll keep fighting. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't stop now. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna mountains too high we can climb it. Fearless, we'll take in the moment. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Can you see the sun is shining like a new hope? Feel it rising, coming over the horizon. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't stop now. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna mountains too high we can climb it. Fearless, we'll take in the moment. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. There's no stopping.
Good evening. I hope everyone is doing well. And here in Virginia, it's a cloudy day. There was rain in the morning. I'm actually pre-recording this around 1:30. My smartphone tells me that the sun will come out. The sun will come out like around 4 p.m., which I plan to later on this evening go to the pool and swim and work on my cardiovascular. I had a checkup this week and it went pretty well. The doctor said I had a body of a 20-year-old and I should give it back as soon as possible. But trying to lose weight, love to swim. So I go more swimming than to the gym when the weather's cold or whatever, and it shouldn't be like that. But I just like to swim. So that's what happened this week. So by the time you're watching this video, it might be a very nice evening out, which is what I'm hoping for, and then a very lovely Sunday. All right, so we have a good topic today that affects both buyers and sellers. So if you're looking to buy, you're going to get a lot of good tips. If you're looking to sell, you're going to get a lot of good tips. And hopefully with these tips, you're informed and you say, let me give Chris Gargiulo a call to buy a home or to list a home. Okay? So let's do our little introduction so we know what we're actually going to talk about today. Wrong one. I'm sorry about it. Okay. Okay, so today's topic is and is actually longer. It's on my blog. This discussion, this article, and you can always go to my blog, real estate with Mr. G.blog, and usually the topic that we have this week, not all the times, because sometimes I have guest hosts or guests that we're going to talk about real estate matters, but it'll say in today's market, listing prices are like auction reserve price. Now, if you have ever been to an auction, I haven't. I've been to an auction dealing with real estate, and it's actually been online. And when a property, and it's usually a foreclosed property, okay, and the bank or whoever backed the loan is trying to sell it. Before it then eventually, if it doesn't get sold, it goes to different real estate companies to list and so forth. But they'll put it on a blog like not a blog, but a website like auction.com, and they'll show you if you're going to make an offer or your client is making an offer, and you're allowed to, in most cases, with auction.com, you could have a buyer agent representative. They'll let you know if they're not paying out money to agents, okay? That's a whole other story. But in most situations, you can use an agent, a realtor, to represent you as the buyer, okay? But they will show you the price that you have to at least make an offer at. So let's say it's $40,000. If you sell that, I've been by that property, it's worth $30,000. They won't even accept it. Okay. Now, if it stays longer on the market, they might lower it. But for that bid, if it says this is the reserve price, that's the least amount that the seller will accept. Okay. And then what happens, the auction usually goes on for about a week, and people put in their offers. All right. And by the end of the week, if it was like at 40,000, the top bid at that point might be 65,000. Okay. And just a little side note to that, when I prepare for these videos, then all these other things come up. A lot of times when they first put the house on these websites, okay, and it's not all the time, but it's a good amount of times, the first time it hits a HUD website that's like an auction website as well, they only offer it to owner occupant, meaning that the person buying the home will live in the home. And it's actually a nice thing that they do that, because it gives a chance for more home ownership to take place. All right. So they try to reach out to that market. So giving the homeowners or the potential homeowner a chance to buy a home, which most likely they're going to have to renovate and get it at a decent price. Because when homeowners compete with investors, and if they're very successful investors, they have loads of money. So an investor could, if the house is being offered at 40,000, the investor might say, okay, I could really, flip that house and sell for a lot more. I'll offer like 70,000 right off the bat. So they want to give the owner occupant a running start to make offers on these houses. And again, that's a very good thing. And they might let it go a couple times, all right? Even when the seller on this auction has set a reserve price, and he got some prices above that, they might extend it because they think they could get a little bit more, all right? But if it doesn't sell, usually the second time or the third time, when the new bidding starts, they will allow in investors. All right. So, they gave the chance to the buyers, but after a while, they will allow in investors to it. Okay. And again, those prices go up and up and up. Now, there's a whole lesson, to be honest with you, because I've done quite a few of these. There's a whole lesson on this as well. And then if you have a good the buyer agent, they'll keep an eye on the prices and on the website. And the website will say, well, now you've been outbidded, and if you want to bid higher. Now, a lot of times, buyers will put in, the amount that the most they would go to. So let's say this house is 40 and the most they would go to 60,000. So if someone puts in an offer at 42,000, they'll go up to it could be 42,500 or 43,000. You put in the increments you want to go up. And it will automatically go up as other offers come in. But it will stop at 60,000. Now, that goes into that whole other topic. I want to say more so not to the investor, but to the buyer. But it's basically the same idea, what they're saying in today's market, all right? To compare it to prior to, let's say, 2020, when a seller put a house on the market, and let's say I did a CMA for them, and I gave them the price range. Well, it could sell from 200 to 200,000. All right, and that's the price range I think we should stay in. And then most times, the seller will say, "Okay, that's good. If I get 200,000, I'll be happy. But if I go up to 220, that's fine. We could list it at that price. We might list it lower, okay." To any realtors out there who want to give me an argument, it could be 210 to 215. But the point is, you're listing it higher than your bottom line, all right? Than what the true, you're seeing that range of prices, and you go a little bit higher, all right? Because prior to 2020, the buyer will always make a lower offer, okay? Especially if the buyer wants, and this is usually what they want, is money for their closing cost. Okay, so I'll give them. Excuse me. Well, sometimes what I say, if I'm representing a buyer and I did the same way, and I said, well, it's probably worth 220,000. I feel confident like that. And I tell my buyers, but if you need closing costs assistance, then make a full price offer, because if you're asking for 3% back, all right, let's say it's a little over $6,000, give them the full price. It's going to be net the 6%. Oh, I'm sorry, 3% for the buyer, for the seller. But they'll be ahead. So if you're bringing it down to 215 and still asking for closing costs, which are usually around 3%, the seller is netting less at that point. All right. So that's usually how it was. They would start higher, meaning the seller and the seller's agent would start higher, knowing then they'll probably have to come down a little bit and make concessions. But that's different now. Okay. It's very different. So the way they're listing it, and if they're listing it correctly, after the listing agent does the CMA, they say, well, this is the least amount you could get on it, all right? And this is the highest amount. Now, you have to decide, and usually, I give a range. I don't like to pinpoint one price when I list a house, because it's so subjective, okay, when it comes to pricing homes. It really is. And something you think that an appraiser would accept, and then they find another reason to appraise the house lower. So pricing homes, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, and I don't, if there's agents out there that says it's a piece of cake, it's not a piece of cake. because you really have to, when you look at your comps, and you got to get the square footage about right and the amount of bedrooms and baths. Okay, but then you have to look at the interior photos and see if it's been updated. Okay, and the quality of those upgrades. So it's a tricky process. Any agent that tells you it's easy, it's not. We whip out CMAs with our computer generated websites, but they're not fine tuned. All right. I could send out a CMA, but if someone is really interested, I said, well, let me fine tune it. Let me look into it deeper. All right. So, but you give them that range. But at that point, the seller decides, well, I want to make at least this amount of money. So if I say, well, we get from 200,000 to 220 or 215, I say, I want at least a clear 210. So that becomes his or her reserve price that they will not take less than that price. All right. Now, even if the appraisal goes lower, they'll still push it that the buyer makes up the difference. The buyer doesn't have to make up the difference, because if the appraisal does not meet the purchase price, and if the contract is written correctly, they have a right to back away and get back their earnest money deposit. Okay, but the seller is saying this is the least amount I'm going to take. So as a buyer, and by the way, in today's market, and there's no guarantees. It doesn't mean it's a crazy seller market that anything is and everything is going to sell. You still have to price it properly. Okay, you can't go crazy, because there are properties out there sitting there for a couple of weeks. They're not being They're not going into contract 2 or 3 days later. They're staying out there, but they weren't priced correctly. But if it is priced correctly, you'll get in offers, and you'll get multiple offers. And it's common throughout the United States of America. You have multiple offers all over the place. All right. So this is the way the strategy we're using to list properties. Now on the buyer side, and this is the difficulty I'm having with my buyers right now. I have a couple of young buyers I'm working with, and they know what their top price is, and they're only looking at homes at that top price. It's a little tricky because, if we are looking at a home, if your top price is 220, and we're looking at homes that are 220, and then, they get in the office, but then people doing 225 and 230, well, then you've lost a house. All right. And I, being a diligent agent from my buyer, would also do a CMA and let them know if it's worth going above the asking price, and give them a price range too. If they have lots of money and they don't care, I heard up in New York City, where, excuse me, people are offering like $100,000 above. I've seen ranges from $30,000 to $100,000. I mean, those are some people that really have some money. And it's from reputable websites. I kind of believe it. I don't think there's a lot of people going 100,000 over, but I think 30,000 is proper to say. But I imagine they are in areas where wages are high, where you're making a couple $100,000 a year. You have family money. It's that type of situation. Okay. I myself can't see it happening that much in Hampton Roads. It may go as high as that. I've been hearing $3,000 to $5,000. We've gone over a couple $1,000s over purchase price, but I haven't seen anything like really big from, let's say, $10,000 above. Not saying it's not happening, but I think where it does happen, the average wage in that area is probably a lot higher than where we are. I'm not knocking Hampton Roads. I love Hampton Roads. But, if you go up further to Arlington and Washington, those people are making a lot more money. So they may have more money stashed away. A lot of this money stashed away because of the pandemic. For a whole year, people didn't go on vacations. They didn't go on to concerts and paying a couple $100s for tickets. In New York City, when you go to a concert, and if you're driving, when I left, it was like $25 for a night, no matter what, for parking your car. I'm sure now it's close to $50, $60. So if you're going out on a regular basis, lots of money. Well, people couldn't do that because there was no performances. There were no football games, there were no baseball games. So they had a lot of money backed up, and now they have money to do that, to go over the asking price. So to my buyers out there, when it comes to looking, you really have to, let me put a couple of things here. All right, so I talk so much and then I forget to put my little captions out there. So prior to the current market, we list homes higher and then we settled lower, okay? And in most situations, the house was sold below the asking price, but that's not today's market. Today's market, you offer prices, you reserve price. I'm talking now on the side of the seller, and that's the least amount of money you want that you would take for the house, which everything is paid off, and you got some cash in your hand afterwards, and everything over that is gravy. It's just extra, nice profit. Okay, so that's today's market. And for my buyers, you have to think that way when you purchase. All right. So, yeah, we're going to take a shot out. This, if your highest is $220,000, and there's a home on the market for $220,000, you want to see it, and you fall in love. Of course, I'm going to write the contract for you. But I'm going to tell you, we're going to deal with lots of competition, and there'll be probably 4 or 5 offers on it. And then what they will most likely go to is what is highest and best. All right. Notice that it doesn't just say what's the highest offer. It's saying what's the highest and the best offer. Because sometimes the highest is not just the best. Okay. Because, again, probably should have put a graph up here on this one. Let's use a simple number of $100,000. All right. So I offer $100,000. Well, let's put it this way. Let's make it $103,000. I make an offer on the house. All right, but I'm asking for closing costs. So I should have kept it at 100,000. Okay, let's keep it at 100,000. So let's say the house is on the market for $95,000. I make an offer of $100,000, but I'm asking for closing costs. So if I'm asking for 3%, I'm asking for $3,000. So at that point, okay, the seller is netting $97,000. Now, there's small things that have to be deducted, but let's just start with the commission on the buyer side, okay? Oh, not the commission, but the closing costs. There's going to be more things that the seller has to pay out, like the commissions to the agents. But let's just work on that level. So we make an offer of $100,000. We ask for closing cost assistance of 3%. So at that point, the seller is netting $97,000. Okay, so we made an offer of $5,000 over the asking price. Okay, the asking price was 95. We offered them 100,000, 5,000 offer. But let's say the second offer, they offered 98,000 with no closing cost assistant. So at that point, they're receiving, and I'm talking about the seller, 98,000 on that offer. But on my offer, they're only receiving 97,000. So even though the offer price is higher, the seller is not netting as much. Now just remember, I'm using the word netting. There's going to be usually the word net means after you deduct all your expenses. But I'm not I'm just giving you the top portion there. So the second offer, not mine, is actually the better offer. It's the best offer. And sometimes the seller will even disregard the price. And if they get an offer that's not asking for a home inspection, and they have two offers that are very close to each other, maybe offer $1,000, 198, 197, but they may go with the home with not doing the home inspection, just because if the buyer has their bank letter that they've been pre-qualified or pre-approved, why mess up with anything else? We'll just go to closing. Okay, we just do all the paperwork. The buyer will continue showing what they have to show to their mortgage loan officer, and we just go to closing. But when we have a home inspection, there's like a stop and say, okay, we got these things we want to repair on the house, and we're going to ask you, the seller, to fix it. And the seller doesn't really want to be bothered with it at this point. So they may go with an offer that may be a little bit lower, but it does not have a home inspection contingency. Now, as a buyer's agent, I would not ever recommend not having a home inspection. You should have a home inspection. Unless you have money, lots and lots of money, and if you have to put in a new HVAC system, if you have to replace a roof, and then it's not going to make a big hole in your wallet, then maybe. But nonetheless, I'm going to make you sign a waiver that you were informed about the importance of a home inspection, but you waived that. Okay? So these are different examples of highest and best. And actually, before I move on, this is the article from the blog. And I'm just going to scroll down and go through some key points here. And what I really want to read. So, and this is really a recap of what we just discussed. So for generations, the process of buying and selling homes never really changed. A homeowner would try to estimate the market value of their house, then tack on a little extra to give themselves some negotiating room. That figure would become the listing price. Buyers would then try to determine how much less than the full price they could offer and still get the home. As a result, the listing price was generally the ceiling of the negotiation. The actual price would almost always be somewhat lower than what was listed. It was unthinkable to pay more than what the seller was asking. Okay? And not even what they're asking, but even above the appraised value of the house. But here, today, it's different. The record low supply of homes for sale occupied and a very strong buyer demand is leading to a rise in bidding wars on many homes. So, and this was a quote from Lawrence Yun, who is the chief economist of the National Association of Realtors. For every listing, there are 5.1 offers. Half of the homes are selling are being sold above the list price. Now, notice he says have. It doesn't mean every single one, right? Okay. Because you're going to have some homes that are not priced correctly and there's things wrong with it. And consumers today are very, very smart most of the times. And they're not going to buy something higher than what it's being offered at. Or even if the offering price is much too high in the first place. So just to summarize here, due to the low supply of houses for sale, many homes are now being offered in an auction-like atmosphere in which the highest bidder wins the home. In actual auction, the seller of an item agrees to take the highest bid, and many sellers set a reserve price on the item they're selling. A reserve price is the minimum amount the seller will accept as the winning bid. And just on the buyer side, for the buyers, you have to budget what you can afford. So I would recommend, and this is for my area, it might not be for all areas of America, of the United States of America, but look about $5,000 below the top amount that your mortgage officer says you could go, and choose from those homes if you can. Now, I spoke to an agent this week, and I said how she had a couple of contracts this week. She's doing really, really good. And I said how you're dealing with this market, and she said she's shaking the trees. In other words, she's going to their buyers. Okay, what money do you have? Okay, do you have money in the 401k? Do you have money in the pension that you could borrow against? Does grandma have money? Grandpa have money? Your mother and father, and you're able to get letters, gift letters from them saying that we're going to give you this money and you don't have to pay it back. I'm actually going to do in about 2 weeks another episode with a mortgage loan officer. We had it before Rachel came, and we're going to talk about this, about getting these gift letters to help you pay above the asking price or above the appraised price. All right, so that's what this agent is doing, and she's saying we're finding money that could be used to make up that gap between what the buyer has been approved for and the price that they settled on the contract. What's happening too is that a lot of agents, it's not a good idea. They're ratifying the contract at the higher price, but they didn't speak to the buyer's mortgage loan officer, and the mortgage loan officer says, I can't do this. They're not eligible for that high amount of money, and a lot of these contracts being withdrawn because they can't get the money. So it's it really is a tricky market. It's very different this time. And the agent, which hopefully you choose me, I will do my due diligence and make sure that if we are bidding higher, we have to make sure, well, right, if we are bidding high. In other words, there's two parts of this. There's the bidding the higher, and we have the contract price. Now, that house still has appraised to that higher price, right? Okay. And if it appraises, then you have a contract, but the mortgage loan officers say, but hey, they can't go that high. Now, there's a difference between that and, you put a bid on the offer on the house was $200,000, to $210,000, but it's still appraised at the 200. It didn't appraise at the 210. Well, now the bank can't give you a mortgage on the 210. It has to be the 200,000. So where do you get that extra money from? So you have to have all your ducks in order. You have to go and make sure if you're getting a gift letter, you make sure mom has it, the money, your father has it, the money, your brother, a sister, a grandma, grandpa, great aunt, you have to make sure they have it. And they have to realize when they give you a gift letter, they can't go after you and ask you to repay it legally. I mean, they can't take you to court if you don't pay it back. They might have other ways, like, I won't talk about, okay. But, they would have to find some way. I mean, in other words, once they write that letter, and that's the purpose of that letter, because you don't want to increase your debt load, because that becomes a debt now that you owe, right? If someone's giving you $5,000 to go above the asking price. So it gets complicated, right? You really need an experienced agent in today's market. You really do. It's tough out there. All right. Now, what happened this week, let me get rid of this, is that, and I've been telling you about it, I hope you've been excited, we got in our new buyer and seller guides for the summer of 2021. Okay, here's the graphic of the buying a home and the little snippet of what's. And here is the graphic of this should be the selling side. Okay, and so how do I get these wonderful guides that you're showing here? Okay, that's probably what you're asking right now. Okay, let me just get rid of that. And where do you go to get these wonderful guides that I'm giving to you free of charge? No cost. The only thing that I hope you choose me as your agent. And where do I go for these? You go to realestatewithmrg.blog/resource-materials. And there you will see them, and you could download either or all of them. I also have the Millennials Guide to Buying a Home for my younger generation. Okay. And, of course, you could search all homes in Hampton Roads at my website, realestatewithmrg.com. Okay? And you could search and you could ask questions to me, and I get everything. Whoever goes on, I see everything you do, but saving and printing and directions. So it's a great market. Okay? A great website. So feel free to use that anytime. And Let me just hide this for a second. Now, I mentioned last week my former producer, Leonard Potamkin, went back to, I can't pronounce the name of that Russian country he went to, but his family needed him out there. He has a lot of brothers and sisters, so he's gone. But I want to introduce my new producer. His name is William Burgess, and want to welcome him aboard. And I heard that we have a repeat celebrity in our audience today.
Yes, thank you, Chris, for hiring me as your new producer. It's a great honor to be on this podcast. Wonderful news, we have a famous celebrity in the audience. He has had a unique career as a singer, composer, instrumentalist, performer, and humanitarian. After his early years with Motown, he gradually released a striking array of innovative music that would influence the world of contemporary music as we know it today. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Stevie Wonder.
It was good to see him back again. He really stopped by last week, but I had technical difficulties with my live streaming. I had to reconnect my accounts, and I did. So I want to give Stevie Wonder, Mr. Stevie Wonder, invited him back, and he came. He's looking great. He really does. All right, so that's today's show. I hope you learn some good things. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, if you haven't been vaccinated, please get vaccinated. And if you haven't been vaccinated, wear your mask until we get at least the herd. Is it your man? Oh, okay. Is it herd community or whatever? But I know we need to go up to about 70%. We're about 56% now. So if you haven't, it'd be good if you wear a mask. All right. And be kind to each other. I always say the greatest power we have is to love, and the greatest gift, each other. Okay? See you next week.